Why does this have to be more difficult than it seems like it has to be?
I do not know.
Live events, live control room, start streaming. All right. And I'll just run into Keynote real quick and hit the play slideshow. All right, so theoretically, we are streaming to the internet right now. We are probably delayed 1 to 2 minutes. In our testing earlier, we noticed that there was actually a pretty significant delay between what we're sending and what you guys are receiving. So hopefully you'll be seeing this soon, and we will begin the presentation very shortly. I'm just going to go get a drink real quick. Not alcohol. I wish it was alcohol. All right.
Just strikes me as so funny.
What
name?
I have pockets strikes you as funny.
Yeah.
Phil thinks your name is funny. I have pockets.
Well, it's just you're so excited that you have pockets because it just says I have pockets followed by woohoo. Seems like a statement of excitement.
So, just because we might as well ask before we start rolling on this thing, can anyone see the feed? Are you hearing me? Can you see the Please Stand By and Pushy Pixels logo? We will start in just a few minutes here. I just want to make sure that that it is actually indeed running. Most of our testing that we did after Monday's failed attempts, yes, we are seeing it. Oh, excellent! All right. Good deal. So let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Max Moreau, and with me is my co-host Philip Wilson.
Hello. And
we're doing something that's not our usual format today. Normally we do tutorial stuff, and this is kind of a tutorial in a way because it's a how to get a job in the games industry. But we really want to. This is the first time we've done like a keynote style speech, so bear with us. We're going to, because of the time delay between what I'm saying and when you're receiving it, we're going to collect your questions as you go, and we're going to have a moment for questions at the end. So as you have a question, just go ahead and type it into the comments, and then we'll go through that at the end of the show. So without further ado, let's begin. How to get a job in the games industry. So a lot of people who are watching Cooking with Unity and who are learning game development really do have the dream to work in the games industry. Probably the dream involves working on their own games in the games industry and making money doing the things that they love, but maybe even just the concept of you want to be a part of something bigger. You want to get into a company and you want to you want to feel like you're a real game developer. You want to be in that position. You enjoy the games that you make, and you enjoy the games that you play, and you want to be a part of that. Or maybe you are very new at all of this. You don't really know much about the games industry, which is really common because we don't say a lot about what happens behind the curtains in the real games industry. You have to pick it apart from people who. The people who disseminate the information typically is places like Joystick and Kotaku and stuff. And these guys do know game developers. They are part of the games industry, but a lot of the times they don't have the experience necessary to really bridge the gap for you guys to understand what's going on.
Well, a big problem is that everything has basically NDAs are everywhere in the games industry. So a lot of times people won't really talk about what they do because they are bound by a non-disclosure agreement. Yeah,
and actually we can both relate to that. When we both worked at Sony, we were a lot more shy about what we'd say on the show. We did start the show while we were at Sony, but there's a fear involved with that because they make you sign really scary documents. They're written by really talented lawyers, and it makes you think, oh, what should I be able to do here? So let's get started. So first I'm going to go over the usual techniques that people use to get in the games industry. These these range in quality, and you'll see here immediately by the list with what we start here. So one of the first ones is tell someone in the games industry that you have a load of great game ideas. So game ideas are, we'll get more into this later, but this is one of the common ones. Another technique is getting your foot in the door in QA and working your way into the job that you want in the games industry. So you start at a low position in the company, and then you build your way up. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's basically the route that I took in the games industry, and similar to the route that Phil took in the games industry as well.
Yeah, when I was in the games industry, yeah.
And we can tell you that we had kind of mixed results, because I did make it some way into there. I got above the position of quality assurance. But it was at the loss. I didn't really have the respect that I thought I would gain after moving out of that position. I still was kind of treated like QA, even though I had moved up in the company. Phil, do you have any comments on it?
No, I could just never get past the initial temporary contract, and a lot of the times QA is a temporary job. So they'll have a contract that'll last about a year. I mean, there are some places that do hire full-time QA, but that's not common.
Yeah.
So essentially, every time that I would work on a game doing QA stuff, I would have a contract, and it'd just be kind of like, well, you're just passing the months until that contract is up, and then start looking for something else.
Yep. And we're just doing over a high-level overview right now. But so the other one is start building a game project on your own to show off to employers. So let's actually go through in depth on these right now. So great game ideas. So have you ever tried this one? Have you ever met a game developer and told them that you have great game ideas? If you have, watch their eyes, watch the reaction, because they usually just glaze right over when you do this to anyone who's been in the industry for any length of time. Like about a year is about how long it takes for a game developer to go from the point of being like, oh, hey, let's talk about your ideas, to just go away. We don't want to.
Yeah, a lot of the times the problem is that everyone has a good idea, and everyone does honestly have a good idea.
Yeah. So the thing is, ideas are important. You should value your ideas, and you should think about games. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But developing games is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, to quote Edison. Everyone has ideas, like Phil was saying. Not everyone has good ones. And even a good idea, when explained in a few sentences, will come off wrong. It will not necessarily carry the same weight that it does inside of your brain. And then finally, developers hear this all the time. If they go to a bar and it comes up that they make games, there will be someone who comes up to them and is like, hey, I've got a great idea for a game. It happens all the time. Most of the time, they just dismiss these people. I've been telling most of my friends to tell them, no, go to Cooking with Unity, and then I figure if they get to my website, maybe I can help them somewhere. But that's just my little advertising technique to take advantage of the general situation. So this is not... The Great Game Ideas method is really not a method at all, because it doesn't show that you understand what is in the games industry and how to work with other people. There's all these things that it doesn't prove. It basically just proves that you can talk about something at a high level. So foot in the door technique, where you go QA route and work your way up through the rungs. It's a better technique, but it's still hit and miss. One of the big ones is if you end up working for a large company as third-party QA, or for a company that other companies outsource to for QA. We're closed. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's my apologies.
No, you're good.
Play me off, Bill.
Oh yeah, we'll be back in just a moment. We're just sitting here, had technical difficulties with doors.
With doors.
Yeah.
I broadcast from within my hidden base inside my mom's bookstore, and evidently people thought it was open.
Well, yeah.
It does kind of look it, I guess.
Sorry about that hiccup.
Sorry about that little hiccup. So where are we at? So if you work for a company that outsources to QA or third-party QA, you're probably in trouble. The reason being is the way the QA foot in the door technique actually works is you need to learn how to do a job that's not QA while you're doing a job that is QA. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a third-party test or an outsourced company, you are not near the developers. You will never meet the developers. If you become lead, you might talk to one of the developers on the team, and they're usually a junior, probably some fool like me, talking to you about what's actually going on in the company.
And it's most likely over the phone. It's probably not in person.
Yeah, exactly. You will never see what they're working on other than what they send you build-wise. If you want this to work, you do need to find a small company, or even better, a small team run by a large company, so you can actually learn from the game developers there. The latter one is actually really rare because typically if you have a large company, you have a separate QA branch. Internal QA is not as respected as it should be within the community. And so you don't see internal QA for a lot of large-size companies, even if you have a small team. So like you'll just see that team outsourcing to the QA that's available to everyone.
Internal QAs are really, really helpful, too, for developers and for everyone in the company because you get instant results on your testing. You don't have to ship a build off to somewhere else to get it tested and wait a few days for the problems to arise. If something's seriously wrong, you can...
Yes, if there's any developers out there listening, it's great. It actually is good for your company. I know it seems like they just do nothing but play games all day, but they're saving you so much hassle because the people you have internally, you can teach what you want out of them.
Yeah.
So finally, the third strategy is build your own game. And this one is the new standard technique for breaking into the games industry. I see this very common. It's definitely better than the great game ideas method. It proves you have a work ethic. It proves you can take a concept and build it into a product. And it actually puts you above many others in the games industry. It is rare to meet people, even in the professionals games industry, that have made a game on their own or can make a game on their own. I would say that the percentage at where we worked at Sony Bend was probably close to 20 to 30%, and I would say it would be high for the industry standard. Now, when you're talking about smaller companies, it's probably higher. Like, this is one of those things where the ratios are different because if you're in a group of 5 people have to make a game, which means that all 5 people have to be knowledgeable about pretty much every aspect of the game to make it. You don't have people you can break work onto. And this is actually kind of what we're getting to in the presentation too, is there's a lot of jobs in the games industry. We think of only a few of them when we think of the jobs. It's kind of like the movies industry. There's a lot of jobs in the movies industry that's not acting and not directing.
Yes.
But all we care about is acting and directing as consumers. And so if you're in one of those positions, you're still in the industry, you're learning things, you can probably become a director from there. Same thing with the games industry. You want to look for a niche that fits what you like to do.
Yes.
So, bring your own game. Still has a few problems. Now, these are the real actual problems with doing this. The quality of your first few game projects will be low. A lot of people who think about the build your own game technique, they start building a big game project. They might even get some other people involved. And they're just trying to make something that impresses people. And they're usually making one project. And the thing is, your first project, I don't care. My first 30 projects are terrible. It's a learning process to make games, and you should make a few games before you start like going down this. But the problem with this is it means that your first few games are not going to be up to standard. And the people who handle hiring, they're looking at your portfolio, will see the low quality before they see the effort behind it. It's not fair, but this is just how we work as humans in our brains to make sure that we are quality viewers. We see quality first. We want to see things that are amazing. We want to be amazed. And if it's a simple game, it might not amaze people. And if it's a complex game that's badly implemented, it might not amaze people.
Yeah.
Finally, the amount of time it takes to learn what it takes to make a game without help is high. You have to learn every aspect of game development. If you're a single developer and you aren't working with a group, you're really hurting yourself here. It's great practice and it's great to learn it. And I think everyone should make a game on their own. And I think people should learn this stuff. But it shouldn't be your first step. It really shouldn't.
Yeah.
So
don't do what I did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Don't.
Well, I mean, I worked on my game completely on my own.
Yeah. You actually did really good on that.
Save
honestly.
for one thing, which was the music. That was not done by me. That was royalty-free music I found, which is you can get royalty-free. That's good stuff.
Now the thing is, you have a game. You're proud of that game. It's a good game.
Yeah, I like it.
And I like the game. And the thing is, that was a really amazing first game project. But you would probably think twice before showing that in a portfolio, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that's the problem is, again, is you're getting eyes on for like 10 minutes in an interview, and or even worse, you're not even getting the interview. You're just getting the portfolio, and they're looking at one screenshot of your game, and that can do you a disservice, even if you're really proud of it. So, what should I do? So, we've been talking about getting into the games industry. It's an oversimplification of the problem. The games industry has many, many, many jobs available. And so whatever you are good at is what you should focus on first for getting into the games industry. You should specialize early if you want to be in the games industry. So the rest of this presentation is going to kind of break down the roles of in game development and explain how to build a portfolio for the chosen role. The big one I'm going to focus on is I want to be a game designer here, and this is because this is really the most common one that you run into. And the misconception is that game designers just sit in a chair and think up great ideas all day, and that's all they do. And if that was true, the design department would basically just think up an idea and then watch people work for 2.5 years while they twiddled their thumbs.
Yes.
That's not what makes the game. It just gives you a direction to go. It's like saying that that the important part about going to Paris is saying that you're going to Paris, as opposed to, getting plane tickets, figuring out where you're going to go, talking to people, learning the language, all of these things that you would want to do before going to Paris. That doesn't get done in just by saying that you're going to do it. And then, so the entry-level positions are actually well-defined for designers and carry with them a lot of responsibilities. And this is actually the reason there's so much confusion is because this is the role that no one really knows what they do in the games industry. And so that's what I'm going to tell you right now, what actually a designer does. So an entry-level game designer actually does population, which is taking art and character assets, placing them inside the level and to create a gameplay flow, and scripting, high-level game logic and implementation, usually in correlation to interactive sequences and AI. And so I'm gonna talk about these while the slide's up here in a little bit more detail. So population really is kind of what you would be doing in Unity. I'm assuming that my audience has a familiarity with Unity just because of the other things that I do on my show typically, but it's very much you have the art layout for a level, and you have the characters, and you have some AIs, and you have some scripts that maybe were built by the programming department, and you combine all of these things to create a game flow. And so you place the enemies, you place chest-high walls. Those might not have been in the original level specification, but you can just place those anywhere. So you just kind of sink those into the terrain, and you put nodes up for where the AIs can traverse, and you tell the AI, hey, I want you to hide behind this or hide behind that, but if the player comes too close, move to the next node. You do scripting is, as I said, scripting is high-level game logic, but with respect to a designer, like in most companies, you'll have like kind of a scripting department that's a little bit lower than the programming department. Then you'll also have the design department that still does some scripting, and the scripting they're doing is more like if 10 enemies are killed, open the gate to the next area, or play this cutscene, or
start this interactive element.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You might place a box that represents where, like games aren't automatic. When you walk up to a button in a game, it's not just that there's a button on there. Like if you see a game that says press triangle to interact, or square to interact, or Y or B or whatever console you're playing on, that prompt is actually probably a hotbox. It's probably a box that was placed around the door that says bring up this button. You'll actually see it in actually I've been playing Last of Us. You'll see if you walk through a level, tell me how far away that interact is, because it varies pretty much for every element in the game, because they really are just placing boxes, and sometimes their standards change a little bit. And so like you'll see sometimes where you'll be really far away, you'll hit triangle, and the character will automatically kind of walk up to it. So they have a nav point for him to walk to, and they tell him to play an animation, and they tell him to do all this stuff. This is the stuff that you're actually doing as a game designer. So what should be in your game designer portfolio? So I'm focusing on portfolios. Obviously, you're going to need a resume, cover letter, all the standard stuff. And actually, when I say you need all this stuff, the standard stuff is not what gets you noticed. You do still want to have it in there, but I mean, like, get creative on things. If you have like a game project or something, send an SD card. It's not that expensive. Just put it in with the thing. Make them curious what's on it. You know, do something like that, or a flash drive or something. But as far as your portfolio, what it contains, you want to build levels or mods for existing game systems. This is really the kind of early 2000s methodology where there wasn't good access to game engines for a low enough price for a learner to actually start making things. This has changed now because of Unity and UDK and the Crysis engine even. Are all available at a free tier for everyone. So it's probably less of a mod thing than building off of a system like those, which brings me to the next point, which is to make small games in Flash and Unity. And whatever you think is small, think smaller. Think like the Space Invaders type project. Think that thing. Or even do some like found asset stuff. Like go online, go on the asset store, go online, just throw them in there. Synthesize.
Typically, when I tell people, like, if they want to start making games, like, Pong is a really good place to start. Like, start really small and simple. Because it's honestly, like, a good place to just get the basics of, like, movement and a simple game mechanic, and then you can start moving up. I mean, you can take on something a little bit harder, like Space Invaders or something like that, but start simple. Don't jump into an MMO your first game. That is probably the biggest chunk of time and effort that you can probably have. I mean, RPGs are really difficult too because of all the subsystems that those typically have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and the other thing too is as I was mentioning with found assets and stuff, actually check out the Angry Bots demo that comes with Unity. Like pick it apart, actually play around with things, try to add something to it. Like take something that exists and modify it, because when you're working on a game project, you're probably going to be working with their engine. You're probably going to be working with people that already know their stuff, and at the first 2 weeks, all you're going to be doing is literally that, is picking it apart and figuring out how it works. I mentioned Playmaker on here. Playmaker for Unity. I highly recommend it. It's advertised as a no-code solution, and it can be used for that, and that's what I'm saying to use it for in this case. Typically, it's more useful if you also know some scripting and programming as well, because it's actually it's a useful tool not just for beginners. It's actually a finite state machine system, which, if you're making a complex game, you need a good finite state machine system. And it's a graphical one, so that you can work with people who may be code averse. You should also, the other options, of course, are you want to draft game design documents. I said look online for the MGS2 and Grim Fandango GDDs. I will provide links for those in the descriptions. I did not have the time to put them into the presentation for today, but I will put links to that afterwards. They're both really good, really thorough, and give you a really good idea of what a full large game project game design document is. You don't have to make large game design documents either. If you have a very simple game, like if you're making Cannibalt, the game design for Cannibalt is a one-page game design. I can guarantee it, if he even wrote one. It's just, you press a button to jump, buildings come from the right side of the screen, some other events happen. You know, that's literally the whole game.
Yes.
So you don't have to do 63 pages if it's a one-page game, and likewise, if you're making a really complex project, be as long as you need to describe it. And then finally, this is something that people do mention a lot, but it's not as often as it should be. Make board games. Board games show really the whole concept of designing in a system that doesn't really require you to learn the computer portion of things and the programming portion of things, and yet you're still doing programming. Like if you write rules for a board game, that is the same as the programming side of a video game. That's really what scripting and programming are all about, is writing the rules for the systems. And so focus on the rules, make sure that you write them in such a way that people can understand them. I'll tell you right now, if you send a board game, like if you send a freaking board game to a game studio, they will talk about you there. Like, even if they don't hire you, you will be talked about in the hallways there for the next 2 weeks, which means that they're thinking about you. So do the weird stuff. Send some stuff that people don't really expect. So some game designers actually want to be game writers. This is important. You might think that you have really great ideas and be really detailed with them and have like a whole flow of the game. You probably want to be a writer, not a game designer. So writers write the scenario and dialogue for games. And in the case of a writer, your portfolio should be movie-style scripts. Just pretend you're writing a movie. The reason I say this is because dialogue is still the number one way to advance plot in video games. Obviously, some games don't need dialogue. Some games don't have dialogue. But the games that need a writer do. And so if you want to be a writer, you're going to be working at a game studio that has dialogue in their games, and you're going to have to show the plot progression, show character progression, and explain what's happening in the story from the context of the characters within it. So write scripts.
Yes, I mean, that's pretty much the best way to go about it. It's going to be an incredibly long script, typically, for game design. It's just depending on the scope of the game. Like, I wouldn't want to see the script for Fallout 3.
Oh, God. Oh, the open world games are even tougher. Don't, if you want to do that too, like if you have like an event based thing, like it doesn't have to be linear. You could have like when you talk to this character the first time, here's the script, and and that will be cool. People will be like, oh, you're paying attention to how games work and stuff. So
Yes.
so it may not be a linear script, but do it script style. Do it with character to character interaction. So I want to be a game programmer. Now, honestly. So I probably should have put that in slower because I've got a joke on here. But do you like math? Yes, great. No, start liking math. It's a joke, but it's kind of true, but it's also kind of a joke. The thing is, programming and math are not hard. They're just misunderstood. They're just things to learn. Logic will come to you as you use it more, and you will understand more what to do with these things. There's a lot of resources online to learn programming. You've probably found one or two, given that you are watching this presentation right now. But yeah, just look out there for this. This one's probably the hardest one from a scholastic standpoint. And the thing is, the resources are out there for you to teach it yourself. If you're someone who needs a teacher, look into schools, look into to programs and stuff. I went through Digipin, and that's kind of where I got most of my programming knowledge before I started working as QA for a while, and then realizing at the time when I was a QA, I was like, oh, I went to school, but I hadn't had any professional experience, so obviously I didn't know anything, and in my minds. And because I acted like that, that's what everyone assumed, is that I didn't know anything too. And so don't disservice yourself like that. And I'm not saying don't be an egotist either. I'm just saying give yourself the credit that's due.
Yeah.
If you know some of this stuff, remember that in the games industry, they're humans just like everyone else. It's actually surprisingly pedestrian once you get inside there. It's not as magic and mystical. I don't want to ruin this for anyone, but and you don't worry. For the first 2 years, you'll still have your heart swollen up like 5 sizes just from the sheer thrill of being in your dream job. I
would like to stress also that games in particular require a lot more math than a lot of other programming out there. Games specifically require a ton of math. That's what I've noticed, at least in regards to programming.
Yeah. It's true. Like, there's a lot of things you can program that don't actually require all that much math. But if you're doing games or rocket science, you're going to need a lot of math. Those are the two. And and we actually had at our last company, we had someone who left Sony to work at SpaceX. So that shows you that this is not an exaggeration. I mean, you use vector math in both locations. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of math.
I want to be a game programmer. Portfolio. So get involved with game projects. This one's a little trickier because if you already like code, like if you understand code to the point where you said I want to be a game programmer, like this is a less common sentence that I hear is I want to be a game programmer. Usually it's the game designer type thing. But if you want to be a game programmer, you've probably done some programming. You understand basically how to talk to your computer a little bit. You understand how computers work a little bit. So what you want to do is you want to get involved with game projects. You want to find other people who can help make you look good and who need a programmer. And the thing is, teams are always looking for programmers. They really are.
Yes.
And don't sell yourself short. Don't open up with I haven't really done much. Like, be honest with people, but like be honest with yourself here too. Just if you know how to program some, you're ahead of the other people in the group, and you can probably learn the rest that you need to do as you work with them in the way that they work, that you can make a game project with them. look in the places that artists complain about not finding programmers. Game Dev Classifieds, actually this is good for both sides, is just full of people looking for artists and looking for programmer. It's basically like the LFG of game development. I mean, and that's the honest truth. Like the programmer is the healer of the game development. You always want one, but you don't want a lot of them. You just want one good one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like. By the way, I noticed I was stressing how heavy it is on math. But once you kind of know the way that one language works, you can typically start learning more and more languages fairly quickly. Actually, it's not crazy to start learning more languages, and the math will come later. And of course, any syntax that you need to learn from other programming language. Once you get the general flow, it's not so hard to switch to whatever they need.
Yes, and another place I mentioned was pixel art. There's probably another one that's better for 3D art too, but pixel art was another one where it's just like there's a lot of people who want to make games that want to make 2D games, and I know there's a lot of programmers out there that are like grew up in the 2D generation and were like, yeah, I want to make something like Contour or something. Check pixel art out. There's a lot of really talented people out there, and they want to work on game projects. And practice programming on anything that's fun for you. Yes. Whatever you like the most, work on that because you'll get better at it faster and it will automatically specialize you towards a role in game programming. There are so many subgenres of programmer, I'm not going to go into them here. But that's the important thing. There will be a slot for you if you focus on something that you like. I guarantee it. I want to be a game artist. So this is the more obvious one. Honestly, I probably shouldn't even comment on the game artist thing because I know game design a little bit, I know programming a little bit. You've seen my art probably on the show or lack thereof. But the other thing is artists already kind of know what they need to do in the games industry. You need a portfolio. Like the portfolio, you never hear portfolio for game designers. You never hear portfolio for programmers. Portfolio is important for everyone, but artists already knew about this. Artists have been doing the portfolio thing since the beginning of art. So choose a focus to start. This is the other thing. Art is not just art. Like you don't just be. You don't say I'm art, and that's the end of the statement. You don't just say that. You will have focuses. So there's 3D scene art. There's 3D character art. There's character animation, which it's typically rolled in with 3D character art, but I found that it's actually a very, very different discipline. And so typically in the games industry, they found this too, and they will typically have separate people who handle animation versus art. Also, the animation these days, one of the harder portions to learn outside of a game studio is motion capture. That'll probably change in the next few years as cost of technology goes down. We have like Kinect sensors in every freaking corner of the home. Yeah. That probably is motion capturing us already. But yeah, so motion capture cleanup, animation, and timing. Like you're gonna be a god of space time as a character animator. And if you don't have really good character modeling skills but you are interested in animation, there's plenty of places to go to get models, and then you can rig them yourself and set up the animations and figure things out.
It's completely different than 3D character art. You do not have to be able to make models to animate them wonderfully.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, there's the 2D stuff. There's I put 3 styles in here. These are the really major ones right now. Any of them will work for you to a certain extent, but these ones are the most likely to get you a job. The paint style art is like Bastion or even Braid was actually what I was going to say, is where it's kind of like no real rules. You draw it kind of like you would an oil painting or something. There's the vector style art. This is actually probably the most common game art for 2D games these days. I probably should put a better. Yeah, so Castle Crashers, anything from Behemoth for that matter, because I think they actually just use Scaleform to just get all their stuff into the games anyway, from Flash. And actually even if you're making something with Unity, if you're doing stuff with what is that? Rage Spline. Rage Spline is kind of this style of stuff. People need 2D vector style arts. Cut the Rope is a really good example. Cut the Rope is really beautiful, clean vector style with a lot of character in it. And then of course there's 2D pixel art. It's not as big right now for hiring, but I anticipate it's kind of becoming its own subculture again. We're seeing more games that go this style, and then also voxel art too is kind of the 3D equivalent. You'll see this more often too.
Cool.
Yeah, they are. like 3D dot game heroes or something.
I would like to add one other type of game artist in there. All the UI needs to be done.
Oh God, yes.
To a game. That means menus, anything like that, and specifically, people will hire a UI artist that is very good at creating user interfaces. And that is really important because that's a completely different style of art as well.
It is. It's a whole different thing. And the other thing with UI art, and also this falls into scene art as well. There's times when you just need to make things move just because it's cooler when it moves. And this, so keep that in mind. Just make stuff move. Play around with things. You also mentioned I forgot to put on this list concept artists. Concept artists.
Sorry.
Is great. The role is you have to be really good. Like you know what I'm talking about. Like you have to be real good. The reason you have to be real good is because you're only really needed for like the beginning and middle of the game project. So already if you're being hired as a full-time designer, as a full-time concept artist, that's already rare. Like if full-time job as concept artist is rare. Typically you work contract work. Typically you're going to work with a company that has a pool of concept artists who have different talents in what they do. Some do characters, some do background, some do, visualization, some do realistic, some do cartoony, different things like that depending on the thing. And then you'll be hired out of that pool by people who are third party to it. That's part of the reason I didn't include it in the list. It is very much a legitimate job. If you are absolutely just into art and just into 2D art and you actually don't even like a computer, you can get a job as a concept artist. You don't even have to use a computer necessarily.
Yeah,
it's the only job like that in the games industry.
It's the traditional art job.
Yeah.
You are just dreaming out the world before it's made.
Yes. It is, of course, better if you know how to use a computer because then they can move you to other positions too as you need, and then you can provide some extra help with people.
Yes.
Like concept art can very easily be put into a game if you know where to place it. Like sometimes I see it in the backgrounds of games on like paintings and stuff. You'll see stuff is like, oh, I think that was from their concept artist.
Probably. And I mean, if you know some 3D stuff as well, you could start doing terrain.
Yes,
as well as a concept artist.
So. This is still streaming, right?
As far as I know.
Okay, hopefully it's all still going. So other roles in the games industry. These ones I just kind of lumped together because I don't have a lot that I can speak on them, but they're important to note. Sound design. This one actually a lot of people don't mention. Get out there, record sound effects. Believe it or not, Foley is still very much alive. Copyright very much makes it so that you want to do this, where you record your own sounds, because if you have your own sounds, you own them. And you can provide them to other people, and you don't have to worry about anything. So think about how to make sounds. Like if you're going for realistic stuff, go to a shooting range, record some audio from that, clean it up, learn sound processing utilities, learn to generate and edit effects, learn cutting, learn timing on this stuff. Put together a mock reel. Maybe take a video game that exists. Like the other thing is like for copyright, don't ever publish anything that's other people's work. But if you're trying to get a job in the games industry, don't be afraid to show some example work that includes stuff that you don't own the rights to. Just be sure to label it. You're just trying to show your work. So take like a sequence from a video game, recut the audio. Like pick a game that has a really bad video or a really bad trailer or a game that pisses you off audio wise and fix it.
Yes.
Include that in your portfolio. And then there's management. It's a legitimate life choice. I'm not making any judgments on that. That's a joke, honestly. Like there are good managers in this world. We talk about the bad ones because bad news is the news that people care about. But there are really great managers out there. And you can be a great manager, and you can be a pure manager. And actually, I'd prefer to work for a pure manager than someone who was hired up from within the games industry. But the trick with this is you have to get social. You can't be a little geek. You gotta get social. You gotta talk to people, organize people. This is the type of stuff you want. Even if it's not game related, like organize a soccer game or organize like a club of some kind. Just get organizational stuff under your belt so that you have something that you can pull from management. Beginner level management positions are not difficult, but they are still pretty hard to get. So
it's essentially a producer role.
Exactly. So pretend you're a producer. Pretend you already have the job and apply it to everything you do, and you'll be a good manager when you make it into the games industry. So that's the end of the presentation. We're a little bit over on time.
I don't see any.
And you don't see any major questions.
Nope.
Great. There's a 2-minute delay, too, so we're just going to kind of whistle around for a little bit. Do you don't see any questions? Please upload as a normal video after. Please can't watch right now. Yeah, it will be a normal video.
Yeah, I responded to that.
Okay, well, sorry.
But yes. This will be a regular video as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it's already becoming a regular video now, and we're going to have to trim whatever stuff is at the beginning of it, if there's any. Hopefully didn't trim the beginning off of it. I actually intentionally put some buffer time. I claimed I was getting a soda. I was getting a soda. I'm making an excuse now. Whatever.
It was not a lie.
It was not a lie, but the soda was not a lie. But it's not a Crystal Pepsi, unfortunately.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
So,
let's see.
Any questions? How about you? Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think I have any questions. Just comments that there are a ton of different roles, and you can absolutely get into one of them if you know some people that are interested in making a game. Like, make a game with them by all means too. Like, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, getting social, honestly, it shouldn't just be for the management position. It should be for every position. Work with people. Working with people is one of the things that people look for in interviews. That's the reason people still interview, is not because they're trying to find the skills. They're trying to figure out if you fit within the culture. Yep. And you will fit within a culture if you are friendly and outgoing, and people will like you more if you're friendly and outgoing. I know this from personal experience because I used to not be, well, I think I was always friendly, definitely wasn't always outgoing. And that's changed in the last 3 years, partially because of the show. And it's really improved my life and really improved how I communicate with people. Yes, it's still going. Okay, did that just come through?
Yeah, it did.
Oh wow, so
there might be a little bit more delay than we anticipated.
So there's a real long delay. I hope people weren't waiting with their questions. I think I'm just going to close the video at this point.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for dealing with us on our technical difficulties last week, and hopefully we've powered through them on this one. This is a slideshow, so it's not going to be a full test. The full test will be Monday when we continue Star Fox in our live format. I think we're ready to do that now if this came through properly. So
let's hope for it.
So thank you very much for joining us, and you guys have a wonderful evening.
Have a fantastical Saturday thing.
Yep, we'll see you on Monday.
Later. Watch them all.
All right, so now we're actually going to sit here and bullshit for another like 5 to 10 minutes because the last few times that I hit stop on the streaming, it just cut the last 5 minutes of the video. It was like wherever you guys were at, that's where it cut it. So I'm just going to sit here and talk. So if you do have more questions, go ahead and ask them. You don't have to ask. They don't have to be on topic or anything. We can just BS through.
Well, I know. I've been playing Borderlands 2.
Oh, awesome! So. How is Borderlands 2 treating you?
I actually like it.
That was cheap, and I didn't buy it.
It was only one day. It turned out I got it at the very end of that one day.
No.
So by the time I even let anyone know,
it was too
already too late.
Dang it!
Which is unfortunate. But I got it for $10 on the 360, so that was a good deal. So I've been playing it. It's fun. It's Borderlands. It's a loot-based shooter. So
yeah,
it's not just all desert though, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. Oh,
yeah, I didn't know that. Snow.
That's cool. I did know it started in the snow. But it has more variety in areas.
Well,
that's cool.
I went to the desert.
You went to the desert naturally.
Yeah.
So it's just from snow to desert.
Exactly.
All right, and so I've been playing mostly Last for Us.
The Last
of Us, yeah, and it's really cool. What is it that it has?
I like the R2 see-through walls listening.
Oh yeah,
mechanic.
yeah, that's decent. And I also like that it slows you down because it actually helps you be quiet around those monsters that you have to be quiet around. Though what I like about the game the most, honestly, there's these zombies that can't see and you have to be quiet around them.
The clickers.
And if you get really too close to any of them, they'll detect you. But they can get. When I say too close, it's like you have to be in their you have to be encroaching in the personal space. You have to really
be
so,
right up on them.
So you'll be in these situations. They make these really intimate game design choices in the game where they'll put you in this situation where you're backed up against the wall, and I found myself training my shotgun on their head, just waiting as they pass by.
Here's a question actually. It says, how do you stay motivated to complete solo projects?
Okay.
I have pockets.
I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. I'm going to answer that in the comments as well because we're going to be clipping this portion from the video.
I will answer this as well.
My answer for that is make smaller projects. That's really my answer for that. Because the thing is, if you are in month 6 of a project and you're like, why am I still doing this with my life? And it's your first project, start a new project. Just don't delete the new one. Don't delete the one you're working on. Just set it aside. You can delete it 5 years later when you come back to it and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, you've had those situations, I'm sure, Phil, where you come back and you're like,
I don't know what I was doing now when I open up my game anymore. So that was always cool. But when I was working on my game throughout the fun employment summer that was the case, I would actually just like take little breaks. Go for like a walk, go get your mind off focus of what you're doing, and it helped me to stay motivated at least. So kind of break up the monotony when possible. But that doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
It worked for me in this case. So anything for someone looking at self-publishing?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm self-published. So is Phil. We're both self-published right now. How comfortably are you living, Phil?
I don't live off of. I've made a little bit of money off of it, and then I was like, all right, well,
that's the thing.
That's it.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. And the thing is, I'm still learning this stuff as much as anyone is. This is a constant learning process. You will never reach a point in your life where you're like, I am the game master and I know everything about making games. It won't happen. You will never know everything about making games. You will never know everything about making anything. You could pick the stupidest thing. You could pick opening eggs, and you're not going to be a master of that, no matter how much you practice.
Yes.
But the thing is, so self-publishing is basically if you are by yourself making games and you're self-publishing the games, you are now doing the roles of designer, programmer, sound designer, sound implementer, artist, and you're doing the publishing role. Yeah. Anyone looking at self-publishing, you're doing the publishing role. Now, I'm going to say publishing in general in a second too, because that's actually probably more useful. But you have to deal with the publishing. You have to deal with marketing. Marketing's huge. Marketing is not what people think it is, but marketing think, commercials and stuff. Marketing is really just getting the word out. Marketing is just talking to anyone and everything.
So hard to do.
It is so much harder than you think it is. Practice with marketing. Actually, the best way to practice with marketing, go on Reddit, get something on the front page. That is your goal. This is your homework as self-publisher, is figure out something you can put on the front page, that you can put onto Reddit in any category that ends up on the front page. If you can do that, you are a great marketer and you will be great at self-publishing.
Yep.
But if you can't do that, you're going to have to talk to other people and you're going to have to learn a lot. I'm not saying you can't do it. We're doing it. We're not making livings yet.
No.
So and we're not really that close to it either. Now, as far as publishing in general, I didn't mention publishing. That's very much in the games industry. I kind of focus more on the roles that actually have an active. What I really focused on in the games industry was product development.
Yes.
You're making a product. If you want to work in publishing, you are going to be looking at other people's projects and you're going to be making decisions on them and you're going to be keeping projects on track. And actually, I would love you to work as a producer and know games. I would love to see a gamer as a producer and publisher, because it means that you're actually going to see what the other people who typically run those roles don't see. Yep. You're going to be able to identify those games that are going to be the next big thing earlier than other people. I think it was Tycho from Penny Arcade that said games are shit until they're not. It might have been Gabe. I forget if it was Mike or if it was Jerry. But basically, it's true. Games are shit until they're not. And so when you're dealing with a game in its half-finished state, as you will be as a publisher, it makes people nervous because they see it and they've seen other games, quote unquote, and that are finished, that have been published and have already gone through the rigorous quality assurance testing and other things, and it makes them worried. It's like it's hard to see if a project's going to be good earlier than the end of the project. Yeah. And so that's a talent that's kind of missing for that. Anyway, I am going to officially call it on this point. We're going to be stripping this part of the conversation, although we will put we will give you the answers in text form for those ones that were after the buzzer. Okay. You guys have a great night, and thank you again.
Have a happy Saturday.